Welcome to the Eight Figures and Fury podcast. I'm your host, John Roden. Here's my wife, Jennifer.
Hello, I have been a special education teacher for 6 years. I've done AU, severe AU, MI. I worked at Blue Ridge Opportunities, a sheltered workshop for adults with disabilities, and Northwestern Community Services, where I was a case manager for adults with disabilities and carried a caseload of 30. I also conducted evaluations on mental capacity of adults.
Together, we have a 5-year-old daughter named Jovi. She's been diagnosed with autism and Holt-Oram syndrome, something I also was born with. Give everyone a little insight of what Holt-Oram syndrome is it's a rare genetic disorder that not many people know about and how that kind of goes along with the autism that our daughter has.
Yeah, so Holt-Oram syndrome is a mutation of the TBX5 gene. The mutation specifically is a gene that is never activated to produce protein and leads to heart issues, typically holes in the heart, oversized hearts, and also leads to missing muscle, cartilage, and bones in the arms and missing thumbs. So my husband and my daughter both have shortened arms, clubbed wrist, and they are missing one of their bones in their left arm. They also are missing a lot of muscle and cartilage from the shoulders all the way down to the fingertips, so they don't have the same mobility that people without Holt-Oram syndrome do have. Holt-Oram syndrome only affects every 1 in 100,000 people.
Yep. And as you can see, there's 4 fingers there. There's not a single thumb. And then on my left hand, it's clubbed. So it does not go straight. I can't turn my arms completely flat to receive change. I typically drop change on the ground of drive-throughs. So it's a little bit of a struggle. This is the section of our podcast we call the IEP table. As middle school special education teachers, we're often tasked with writing IEPs for individuals in our classroom. And we're here to give a little insight on what those might be, how to navigate those as a parent of a student with autism. So those of you who don't know what an IEP is.
So an IEP is an individualized education plan for students who have a learning disability, a mild intellectual disability, a behavior disability, severe, profound. So what it is it provides accommodations to the student inside of the classroom setting where they can have modified assignments, extra time. They are given goals that the teachers and other staff in the building that provide service to them have to follow. It is very important for students with disabilities to have IEPs because it makes it where they have the chance to be successful and can graduate, can learn, can be in the least restrictive environment, which means that they are in a classroom amongst their peers who do not have disabilities. They deserve the same rights as every other student in the building, and their disability should not come into play. An IEP makes sure that they are protected and that their rights are protected.
Right. And important things for parents, like there's certain steps that parents can better plan for, so when they come to an IEP meeting that they're not hit with surprises. There should never be any surprises when a parent shows up to an IEP meeting. The conversation should always be there between the teacher and that parent, how that student's doing. They shouldn't arrive to an IEP meeting and be like, oh, surprise, your student can't do these things, because that conversation should have already been had and that parent should have already been a part of those meetings previously.
Yeah, parents, you have the right to request the draft of the IEP before the IEP meeting even happens. You have the right to have a conversation with their case manager and their teachers before the IEP meeting. Please bring any information you have to the meeting, like a vision statement on who your child is, what you would like to see in the IEP, how you would like it to be implemented, the priority focus. What goals do you want to see? Do you functional goals, speech goals if they receive speech services, ELA goals, math goals? What do you want to see them achieve? And the no surprise rule. You should not be surprised when you come to a meeting. Also, you need to know that you have every right to request an IEP meeting at any time during a school year. You do not have to wait until the annual IEP meeting when the case manager schedules it to have the conversation with the staff and service personnel that's providing services to your child to have difficult conversations. At any point during the school year, you have every right to request an IEP meeting and to meet with the IEP team. And the IEP is individualized. It should provide more information than just academic achievements and academic progress. You can have personal information in there on their personality, what they like, how they, respond to certain gestures and tones. You have every right to request those things be put in your student's IEP.
Yeah, when it comes to your student, your individual with special needs, you are the leading expert. There's no one that knows more than you do about your child.
And you have the right to request any person be there. If you want, you know, IEP meetings, we are required to have one general education teacher there. If you want their math teacher, their ELA teacher, if you want a specific teacher there, you have every right to request that you would like that person to be there. And if that person does not show up and that person does not come, you have the right to also request why that person is not coming to their IEP meeting.
And also those IEP meetings, just notice that they're typically to cover a year. So you want to look for what goals are important for your student to try to achieve in that year. Don't be too broad and trying to pick things that are going to be a little more difficult. That's why typically we focus on like ELA goals, math goals. Try to find something that's functional for your student that's going to be able to be achieved in that school year.
Bring previous documents. It's really important that if there was a service that was being provided or any documents you think that is detrimental, or that would be critical to bring it to the IEP meeting. And if you're told that your student is not achieving one of the goals, or they are making no progress, or you are told that they are making progress but you're not seeing it, you have every right to request the data or to see work samples. But I would just come prepared. There's great resources online. There's great books that advocates have written for, parents. And a lot of the books provide in there what questions parents should ask in IEP meetings. A lot of times parents go to these IEP meetings and they just assume, since the special education teacher is there, or the administrators there, that they know the law, they know IDA, they know the regulations. So a lot of things aren't explained. I feel like, to parents, to make them understand the process, ask questions in the meeting. If there is something you don't know, or if there is a terminology that you don't know that the case manager or special education teacher or administrator says, and you don't know what the meaning is or why it's being brought up or how it's being implemented and used for your child's IEP and success, ask questions, bring it up. You have the right to ask for things in writing. You have the right to request people be at the IEP meeting. So just ask questions, become knowledgeable, look things up. Also too, just show up. Unfortunately, we do work at a school where um, we see a lot of, kids who don't have parents show up. And we understand, the home dynamic is very difficult. But if you can't make it, you can have the IEP meeting via phone, via Teams. You can request to have it rescheduled. You can, when the case manager introduces themselves at the beginning of the school year, you can say, hey, when their IEP time comes, I can only do this time, these days. You can do that, because you, as a part of the IEP team, you should be there. So just show up, be prepared, know what your rights are as a parent, and don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out.
Yeah, there's no bigger advocate for your child than you. So make sure you're involved and show up for your child. All right, now we're to the out and about part of our podcast where we talk about things that we experience out in the community. Are they accessible for our daughter? Is it a good fit for us? Why are certain places maybe not doing more? Recently, we took our daughter to the pool locally here to War Memorial Park, and she has a blast at the pool. They do a nice thing. It's an hour before it opens to the public for individuals with special needs. When we finished, we decided to take her over to the playground, and quickly we noticed that playgrounds are no longer accessible for our daughter. The days of the slide and swing or the wooden castle are far gone, and now it's a ninja rope course.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, it's a lot of, climbing in metal bars, and with our daughter, she does have limited mobility. I mean, with having no thumbs, her grip on things is not good. She can't grip things and stay holding on to them. Also, with her arms being the way they are, they can't support her body weight, even though she is very small. Um, so it leaves a risk of her falling. Unfortunately, with the hold arm syndrome, she does have humerus dysplasia. Her left humerus is very underdeveloped, so she breaks it very easily. A fall that typically would not hurt a child breaks her arm. She has broken her humerus 4 times in the last 5 years from a very small, just typical fall that every child has. Um, and that's the conversation we had. They, unfortunately, whoever manages these parks puts in the one handicap swing and thinks that that's efficient. And, we only know the experience with our daughter, but I'm sure there's other parents out there who, think about the same things or experience the same things with their children who have disabilities. And it's just something that we noticed that I don't think people take into account, the fact that these children would love to go to these parks and have fun, but unfortunately it's just not adaptable for them and they can't do it. Um, and I don't think enough people speak up about it.
She about to take one step, and there's a whole platform missing, and you have to cross these narrow ropes just to get to the slide. Um, we were able to find a smaller area that was more accessible. It looked like it had like a little ramp going up to it, and it had one slide and one of the swings. Overall, the other two major parks that kids play at were just inaccessible. And this isn't the first place we've been to. We've been to others that in order to get up to the slide, you have to maneuver multiple levels, either via rope or platform, and you have to lift yourself up. And I understand, that's great and all for the majority of kids, but for our daughters, it's very difficult. And I don't think they take that into account. Um, this next section of our podcast, we're going to take a brief moment to discuss the moments we got the dual diagnosis for our daughter. So not just finding out that she had Holt-Oram syndrome, which we were pretty much enlightened to while she was still in the womb, to finding out that she also has autism, and going through birth to 3, her being a nonverbal child until she's 3. Um, for me personally, when my whole thing was a struggle with hoping that she would not have the same Holt-Oram syndrome, which I didn't know the name of it at the time, but hoping that she did not have the same thing I did and would come out quote unquote normal, just because of all the things I know that I went through in life, how difficult things are, how others pick on you, the way you're stared at. Um, it's not for the faint of heart. It's an extremely difficult thing to grow up with. And although I learned to maneuver it and deal with laughter and, maintain a good, positive outlook on everything. So when she was born, like I had a really hard time seeing her have all the features I had, not because I loved her any less, just because it was just extremely hard to accept that she would have to go through everything I went through. And unfortunately for her, not only did she have to go through it, but it was like times 10. And for Jen, it was a lot worse.
Yeah, so we found out about the hold arm syndrome when I was 5 months pregnant. I went to a specialist. Specifically, they was just screening for facial features of Down syndrome. That's when the maternal fetal doctor noticed the clubbed wrist and the arms after measurements, and noticed the heart issues. She did want to do a genetic test in utero, which I denied for, personal reasons. She asked if I knew of a other family member that was blood related to Jovi, who had these same features. I said yes, of course, her father. So I brought him in. They did the genetic testing on him, and it came back positive as Holt-Oram syndrome. As he said, he had no idea what it was called. His mother had the same thing. It was chalked up to a medication problem.
Yeah,
A side effect.
yeah, I was always told that my grandma took some kind of pill to try to get pregnant, and there was some kind of birth defect attached to it, and that's what hit my mom. Um, and then she had me. I was a little bit worse, and I had two other daughters that didn't have it, so I thought maybe, hey, cleared it, we're done. But
My doctor said, when she saw it, she said, "Hey, let me do some research. I believe I saw something like this in one chapter of my medical books. I think I know what it's called." Luckily, she kept all of her medical books. She looked at it. She said, "Yes, I think this is what it is. Let's do genetic testing," and it came back. When we first got the diagnosis of the Holt-Oram syndrome, the arms and hands and stuff like that, I did not care about that. That did not bother me. I did not care. But the heart problems were the biggest concern. She had a lot of heart problems, a very large heart. She was born with an ASD, which is a hole in your upper part of your heart, and she was born with 5 VSDs, which is holes in the lower chamber of your heart. She was also born with her aortic arch very narrow. That is the part of the valve in your heart that supplies blood flow to your lower extremities. The entire time I was pregnant, after we found out about the heart conditions, I was told that she was at risk of going into heart failure, and a cardiologist was immediately brought in. I had to choose between UVA or WVU in Morgantown. After doing extensive research on pediatric cardiologists and pediatric surgeons, because we knew she would need to have open heart surgery at some point, I chose UVA. The pediatric cardiology surgeon there, Dr. Ganjimi, was by far the best. Other hospitals around the United States call him in to fix their cardiologist mistakes. So it was a no-brainer. I immediately went with UVA. When she was born, I was ecstatic because she wasn't rushed to the NICU. We thought that she was going to have to be rushed to the NICU, to the point where I was induced. So the NICU was on standby. Her cardiologist was on standby. Everybody was on standby. But luckily, she was not rushed to the NICU for about 7 or 8 hours, until her cardiologist came in to do an echocardiogram, an EKG on her. And unfortunately, the results were not positive, and she was immediately rushed to the NICU, where she spent a week. She was discharged. We was brought home. We were ecstatic again. We're like, you know what? Open heart surgery is going to wait. Yep. This is fantastic. Unfortunately, that did not last. So, I think we're going to have another podcast where we're going to dive more into everything we went through with her, everything she went through.
Yeah, because not only were we dealing with the Holt-Oram, the heart issues, we were doing all this during COVID.
Yeah.
Which
and 3 other kids.
Yeah, 3 other kids and jobs, and navigating all that at the same time, while trying to keep your sanity. So that'll all be a whole nother episode, because trust me, it's a whole episode in itself.
Yeah,
And
but
then
in discussing like my coping mechanism, I did not cope. I essentially turned into a robot. I could not bring myself to feel the full magnitude of what we were going through, of what my daughter was going through. I am a type of person where when I feel emotions, I feel them very deeply and intensely, and they pretty much consume me. And I don't like emotions I cannot control. So grief, anger, hurt, anything outside of just being happy, I don't like to feel those because I don't cope very well. So I did not cope. I essentially turned my emotions off and turned into a robot. Um, Luckily, you know, he was there and allowed me to do what I needed to do to cope in the moment. He knew exactly how I was, and he, you know, let me deal with it in my own way, even though it was a very unhealthy way. But I am grateful that, not only was he there and let me deal with it my own way and didn't push me to try to face what our reality was at the moment, but, my siblings and my parents also did the same thing. They, reached out and checked in, but they never pushed me to talk about it. They never pushed me beyond the point where I was not ready to go.